Hey everyone, it's me, Scott Lang, but you know me, and well, you probably know him, Mr. Alfred Watkins. Now, real quick throwback, for those who've been following my webisodes since the beginning, which is pretty much my mother and my golden retriever, you know that for 5 years now, I've been stalking Alfred because he's been on my list of admired band directors personally. Well, now he made the official list. After over 10,000 people are on the email list, over 70 names nominated, over 40 voted on, Alfred Watkins, to no surprise to anyone, you made the list of America's most admired directors. Congratulations, Mr. Watkins. It's a pleasure professionally and personally to be able to spend this time with you.
Well, thank you so much, Scott.
So, I know that I'm not the only one who wants to pick your brain a little bit. So, you've been teaching 37 years. How many here at Lassiter?
31.
31 here at Lassiter. Has anything changed? What? Like bells? You gotta love this stuff. What's changed, if anything, about music education in the last 37 years?
Well, the kids change about every 5 to 7 years because they're reflected by the overall culture. We've had a massive shift, probably 10 years ago, and again 5 or 6 years ago. And I don't think we're going to put the genie back in the bottle. Most of it's caused by social networking and their availability to things on the internet that they didn't have as much availability to 7 to 10 years ago.
So it's made it harder? You think social media has made it harder?
It's made it harder and easier. When they have great rehearsals now, they leave and discuss it on Facebook, or they'll tweet it to each other. Years ago, they didn't have a great rehearsal. They would hang out in the band room and visit.
Okay, do you tweet? Do you Facebook?
I do Facebook frequently, but not my students.
No, I understand.
And I do tweet, but I don't do it as well, as often. But I do enjoy connecting to, using the Facebook as a source of communication with my colleagues.
Okay, so I would agree. Technology has made it harder. Balance that with technology making it easier. We have, tuning apps and metronome apps, and we can record kids daily with the phone. Where's the balance? Has the technology taken more than it's given more than it's taken? Or is it
technology has made it 5% easier.
How much harder?
No difference. At the end of the day, if you have a tuner in your pocket, you can pull the tuner out and help a child with a pitch. At the end of the day, however, you've got to be able to hear the sound and see if it's in tone, it's in color, it's in timbre, it's in texture. And if we need a tool to tell us that, then we're not using our ears. We become lazier and our eyesight's getting improved. So I still rely mostly on my ear and the students' ears with some use of technology enhanced in the classroom.
So train the ears, not the eyes.
That's exactly right.
That's a great one. Okay, hear that one. Train the ears.
Some people may consider that to be a little old school, but the arts are old school. Ballet is old school. The paintings of Renoir, of Van Gogh we still admire. The music of Beethoven we still admire. Although the New Age music is terrific also. But if we replace the old with the new, then we lose the sense of what made us special in the arts. So that's always been that's a concern of mine.
Okay, so speaking of Renoir, we're in a hall of incredible faces and accomplishments, and maybe you can pan around and show. I mean, you've got some of the great names in our profession up here: the Beejans, the Kramers. It's just amazing, and obviously the maestro of them all, Fennell. Tell me about this wall. Tell me about this office. Tell me about some of your favorite memories. Give me one or two highlights.
The highlights I don't have. The highlights are much like children, and they're much like people in the arts. You ask a person what's their favorite composition. It's one they just most recently finished. And so I understand that, and I don't have highlights. There are tons and tons and tons of many highlights, but none that are greater than others, because I live mostly in the present and the future. That's how I see things. That's part of what keeps me afloat.
Your first phone call, if you have a musical score study question, who do you call?
Depending on what the piece is.
What was the last call you made?
I may have called Rick Clary about something down at FSU.
He's got better ears than a raccoon at night, by the way.
I was talking to him about Lincolnshire Posey. This is our 4th time playing Lincolnshire Posey, and I want a different perspective. And so it just depends on what I'm doing. But you asked about my heroes in here. As I was coming through my early part of the career, I, along with many other people, were told to find the best people that you can find within the profession and seek them out and glean information from them.
Good advice, by the way.
That's exactly what I did and still do. So I met the Ravellis and the Bijans and the Fennells very early in my career because I found out that they had the best groups and they were the best at doing whatever they did. So I would videotape them whenever they did region bands and all-state bands and take that in clinics, and I'd buy anything I could find they had recorded or any lecture they had given. And I would read them and I would collect that information, that data, so that when I met them, I could forge a relationship with them. And I'm real proud to say that I knew all of those very, very well. As a matter of fact, the score and baton rack that sits behind you was handmade by Dr. Harry Bijan. When the doctor told him he needed a hobby after he retired from the University of Illinois, he handmade that and mailed it to me. This was around 1990. He was here for the first time in 89. Ravelli was here for the first time in 88. Fred Fennell came once or twice here, but that was the last summer that he was alive. And so, as a sponsor of the Symphonic Band Camp, we originated it here in 87, 88. So all these conductors have been in spending a weekend with the band, not just a rehearsal. They would come in and I could hear how they listened to music and how they saw life. And so when they would have ups and downs in their private life, over the course of a weekend, you could share that information. Yeah. So I learned how to become a better band director and a better husband and a better father and a better nephew as a result of that generation. John Painter was always one of my heroes, too. Oh, yeah. And that's the reason I formed up my Cobb Wind Symphony, which I've done now for 14 years, in honor of John Painter and his North Shore Band. The North Shore Band.
So, okay, we were sitting in the office. Before this interview, we were talking about the purpose of the office, and you shared some salient information about why an office space is important. And you talked about not only your happy wall, but you talked about your need for privacy. Can you talk to some young teachers or teachers out there about what is the purpose of this space? We're always worried about that space. What about this space?
In order for the outside rehearsal and the organization to function well, we must study our craft. And studying the craft means we must have a clear mind at approaching whatever the job is, whether we're taking the band to the Rose Parade and the organizational practices that go along with that, or preparing to conduct the Hymn Symphony. Not that I do score study in here in All Score study I do at home. This is the operations of the program. So this private room allows me to think, organize, forecast more than anything else when I'm unaffected by the classes or the empty space that goes on out there. The phone doesn't ring in this office, for example. So I have some privacy every day that I can devote to putting the band together. Not paying bills and not the things that make my outside life work. This is just a private room. The office is filled with awards. One because every award that you receive was given to someone that had honor for you. And so I don't like putting them in the closet. I won't put them underneath the bookcase someplace. Everyone gets these displayed here at home because it was special for someone to give it to you. It's also a feel-good wall. As I mentioned to the students earlier, about once a week, once every 2 weeks, I think I'm not very good at it. I feel like I'm in my 4th or 5th year as a teacher. Yeah. I'm still learning the craft because I live in the present and the future tense. And so if I can forget about the past or past accomplishments, I can look forward to learning for the future. But you can't live in that space very often. So I come in here and I see that I had a clarinet father that liked the band enough to paint that picture for us one day, or that this commission work Jim Colonel did for us. So yeah, Ravelli was in the office in '88, and I liked him. And the citations of excellence remind me that the National Band Association thought that I did a good job, and they're done chronologically. And because you need that, because it's easy to. And I rehearse the band in my own building, and I never look at the name on the side of the wall. I know it has my name on it, and it's easy to find it on the campus. But it doesn't. But it's humbling. Much like the leader of the band, most of my band directors is a humbling award. But this is a feel-good wall. We have to have a place where we realize that we're not always failures of what we do. If not, then we live in a defeated place, or we blow ourselves up in the opposite direction. We think we're more special than we are.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth. And I used to call them the happy file. I did them with my students. I took it from the Robert Foljam story about having a happy file. And I used to make my students create one every year. That was a part of band camp. One last question for you. Any words of advice? Not to those people, to me. I'm a music educator. I've got a lot of room to grow and a lot to learn. Based on your experience and your knowledge and your success, what are some words you can share with to help guide me and other people to the same level of success that you've enjoyed?
I'm not sure how much guidance you need at this juncture. You seem to have done okay and seem to be
A lot of people would say I need a lot.
There are 2 or 3 things that are critical for all of us, however. One is we must learn our craft. And through reading, listening, studying, talking shop, that must be an unending process.
Is the craft of music different than the craft of teaching?
No.
They're the same.
No.
There's
Well, there's a pedagogical side of
Right.
teaching, and there's an artistic side of teaching. And so that one is when we train our ears as to what we're hearing in the artistic side for me. And then I have a pedagogical side when I must learn the craft of every instrument and combine those 2 for whichever organization that I'm working with.
What about the craft of the communication of information?
Well, that's a whole different element.
That's my question.
It's a whole different element. And learn the craft of, first of all, you've got to be able to hear what you're doing.
The craft of
music.
music.
In your ear, the craft of music. And you've got to develop pedagogical skills in order to get your players to
the craft of teaching music.
Yeah. And then there's a whole other set of criteria that are there. And they're mostly, for me, they're biblically based. They're based on honor and based on morals and based on integrity that I learned as a child. And try to encourage my own children to follow. And it's most of the things that, again, they're biblically based. Honor, integrity, respect for others. And then if you can have respect for others, you certainly can have respect for your community. And I've called this my community for 31 years. I've lived here for 13. But it's my community. And so my job is to serve my students and my community. I don't believe in taking things from my students and community. So it's mostly service, which is honor as far as I'm concerned. And so that part of it is signature as the application component. And of course your program has to be well organized. And you must have goals, 3, 5, 10-year goals. Mm-hmm. But if they're based on service and not based on selfishness, you will accomplish them and even more.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and wrap a bow on what I just heard. I heard really 4 different crafts. I heard the craft of music.
We could do more.
The craft, well, we could do it. The craft of the pedagogy
Mm-hmm.
of teaching music.
Sure.
The craft of teaching itself, and the craft of running a program. Because it's like a small business.
Mm-hmm.
So you say study the crafts.
You have to study the craft.
Ground yourself in
whatever it is that you're asked to do, you should be an expert at doing it. Whatever it is the job entails, then we should be experts at doing it.
That's a fair
and so
statement.
then the appendages become unending. But whatever you're asked to do, then make sure you're an expert at that. And if you're not an expert at that, I call it the bucket theory. The bucket theory means that if I'm pouring water in a bucket, and this bucket is, or pail, is 75% full, that means I've got 25% that's empty. However, that could be the quality of my punctuality. I'm in the 75th percentile. Suppose my work ethic is a 20th percentile. Well, that bucket isn't quite as full. And so it's necessary to learn to fill this bucket with water, or goodness, or information. What if my musical aptitude is in the 30th percentile right now, and I need it in the 100th percentile? So I fill that bucket, or I develop those skills. But I look at things in the simplest of manners, because these are really pretty complex appendages.
Yeah.
So whatever the craft is, it's important that we fill that bucket, and using the simplest terms. So the goal in life for me is to make sure that all the buckets are full.
Okay, so what you just heard from the master, there's 4 buckets. Figure out where your bucket's at and work to fill your bucket each and every day. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Again, those of you who have followed me know that for 5 years I've been trying to meet this man, and I can finally say I've done it. Professor Alfred Watkins, the pleasure was all mine today.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Good luck. God bless.